It was a quiet evening. The sun was setting, and the sky turned orange. A soft wind blew across the small town. People were returning home, shops were closing, and everything seemed normal, until the black car pulled up at the gas station. Inside was a man, dark skin, wearing a gray hoodie, jeans, and old sneakers. He didn't look dangerous. He didn't look rich. He just looked tired. He got out slowly, walked to the counter, and paid for gas and a bottle of water. He didn't talk much. He just nodded and thanked the cashier. But someone was watching, across the street. A white lady stood near her car, whispering into her phone. "I don't know who he is, but he's acting strange," she said. "I think he might have a gun." Minutes later, 2 police cars pulled up, lights flashing, sirens off. 2 officers stepped out. Officer Dale, older and serious, and Officer Kent, younger, a little nervous. They saw the man standing near the pump drinking his water. Officer Dale walked up quickly. "Sir, hands where I can see them." The man turned, calm but confused. "What's the problem, officer?" Kent moved behind him. "Hand on his gun." "Don't move," Dale said. "Put your hands on the car." People around started watching. Some took out their phones. The man raised his hands. "I didn't do anything. I'm just getting gas." Dale didn't care. He grabbed the man's hands, pushed him hard against the car, and began searching him. Nothing dangerous. No gun, no drugs, just a wallet and an ID. Dale looked at the ID, then paused. His face changed. He showed it to Kent. Kent read the name, and something about it felt important. They took him to the station anyway. Inside, the man sat in a small room. No windows, 1 chair, 1 camera. Officer Dale stood outside confused. His ID is real, but something strange. I ran the name, and it bounced. Then I tried again, and it said, "Classified access." Kent frowned. "What does that mean?" "I don't know, but it's not normal." Inside the room, the man sat still, quiet, calm. He looked around. His eyes were sharp, like he was studying every corner of the room. Kent stepped inside. "Want some water?" he asked. The man nodded. Kent placed a bottle in front of him. "What's your name?" "You already have it," the man said softly. "Okay. What were you doing at the gas station?" "Buying gas." Kent sighed. "Look, man, just help me understand. The lady who called said you looked suspicious. Said you might be carrying something." The man smiled a little. "I guess being quiet while black is still a crime." Kent looked down. He didn't know what to say. Outside, Dale was still on the phone trying to get info. Suddenly, the chief walked in. "Why is this man here?" she asked. He matched a suspicious call. The chief looked at the ID. Then her eyes widened. "You brought him in? You know him? I've heard the name once, in a case I wasn't supposed to know about." Back in the room, Kent asked, "Why won't you tell us who you really are?" The man leaned forward. "Because you already decided I was guilty. You didn't ask me questions. You didn't check my story. You just grabbed me, pushed me, treated me like dirt." Kent looked ashamed. "But now you're asking questions. And that means something changed." Kent said quietly, "Your name, it triggered something in the system. I think you're someone important." The man leaned back. "I used to be." Then the chief entered the room. She looked at the man. She didn't speak. She didn't sit. She just stared at him. Finally, she whispered, "Is it really you?" The man nodded slowly. "Yes." The room fell silent. Outside, the news had already started to spread. Someone had recorded the arrest at the gas station. It was online now. People were angry, not just because of the arrest, but because of the name on the ID. The man they arrested wasn't a criminal. He was someone who had disappeared years ago, someone the government had once called a hero, and then forgotten. Kent looked at Dale. Dale looked at the chief, and the chief said one thing: "We may have just arrested the wrong man, in the worst way possible." The room was colder now, not because of the air, but because of the truth sitting inside it. The man, still calm, still quiet, looked around the station with tired eyes. People were whispering. Phones were ringing. The chief had locked herself in her office, and still, he said nothing. Officer Kent sat across from him again. He tried to stay calm, but his hands were shaking. "You haven't told us anything," Kent said. "People outside are asking questions." "I'm asking too." The man stared at him, unblinking. "I already told you everything," he replied. Kent frowned. "You said nothing." The man leaned forward. "Exactly." Outside the room, Officer Dale paced up and down the hallway. He didn't like this one bit. He whispered to the chief, "We need to fix this before it gets out of hand." The chief replied, "It's already out of hand. This man's name is connected to something far above us. I tried calling the federal office. They told me to forget I ever saw it." "Forget?" Dale asked, angry. "After we arrested him in front of everyone?" The chief nodded. "Now they're watching us." Meanwhile, back in the interrogation room, Kent tried again. "Just help me understand, sir. You don't have to be afraid. I'm not here to hurt you." The man looked at him and said slowly, "I'm not afraid of you." That one sentence stopped Kent completely. There was no fear in the man's voice, no anger, just truth. Then, for the first time, the man asked a question. "What's your name?" "Kent. Officer Kent Thomas." "And why did you become a cop?" Kent was confused. "Why? Does that matter?" The man smiled slightly. "Because every man with power must remember why he wanted it." Kent stayed quiet. The man added, "If the answer is fear or pride, it's the wrong reason." At that moment, Dale burst into the room. "We need to move him," he said quickly. Kent stood. "What? Why?" "Some people are coming. I don't know who they are, but they're not regular cops. They didn't call. They didn't check in. They just said, 'He belongs to us.'" The man stood up slowly. Calm again. "I don't belong to anyone," he said. The door opened. Two men in suits walked in. No smiles, no IDs, just a short sentence. "We'll take it from here." Kent blocked the way. "He hasn't been charged. You can't take him without a reason." One of the men raised his eyebrow. "Do you really want to make this difficult, officer?" Dale pulled Kent aside. "Don't. These guys, they're different. If they say leave it, we leave it." Kent looked back at the man. For a second, he saw something in his eyes. Not fear, not anger, but a warning, like the man was saying, "Don't let them take me." The suited men walked forward. They grabbed the man's arm and tried to pull him up, but he didn't move. He looked at Kent, and then finally, he spoke. Not to Kent, not to Dale, not to the suits, but to the camera in the corner of the room. He stared directly into it and said, "If I disappear tonight, tell the truth anyway. Tell them everything." The suit stopped. "What the hell are you doing?" one asked. The man smiled. "You're not the only ones watching." Suddenly, an alert rang on Dale's phone. Then Kent's, then the chief's. News. Stations. Twitter.Instagram live feed. Someone was already streaming the footage, the man's face, his warning, and behind him, the two suits. Kent whispered, "How did he?" The man replied softly, "I don't speak much, but when I do, people listen." The two suited men quickly left the room. Too late. It was out. The world had seen it. The man sat back down, peaceful again. Like he knew this was only the beginning. Outside the station, a crowd had started to gather. Some were shouting. Some were praying. Some just stood there, holding signs with only his name written in bold letters. Inside, the chief finally stepped into the room. She sat across from him. "I need to know the truth," she said. "Who are you?" The man looked down, then slowly reached into his jacket. He pulled out a small folded piece of paper, old, torn, faded. He placed it on the table. The chief opened it. A photo, a young boy, scared, crying, hiding under rubble, and beside him, a younger version of the same man, holding the boy, protecting him. The chief recognized it. It was from a news story long ago. A rescue in a war zone. A moment that became famous. But the hero in the story? He had never given his name. Until now. The man spoke. "I was sent to places no one wanted. To go. I saw things most people aren't strong enough to see. I saved people. And then they buried my name," the chief asked. "Why are you back now?" The man looked at the camera again and said, "Because the truth they tried to hide is waking up again, and someone needs to stop it." The station was no longer quiet. Phones kept ringing. The chief was yelling in her office. Outside, a crowd had grown even larger. People held signs, chanted, and recorded everything with their phones. Some were angry, some were confused. But all of them were there for one reason: him. The man who had been treated like a suspect. The man who was once a ghost. Inside the station, Officer Kent sat in front of his computer, searching for answers. He couldn't let it go. Who was this man? Why? Was his name showing up as classified? Why did those men in suits come without warning? And most of all, why did he disappear all those years ago? Kent opened an old database. He typed the man's name again, Malcolm E. Rivers. This time, he didn't use the police system. He searched deeper. Dark web archives, forgotten files, old newspaper clippings. At first, nothing. Then, something strange. A small article from 12 years ago. American soldier rescues 38 children from war-torn village. Disappears weeks later. No photo, no full name. But the article said the soldier was part of a covert peacekeeping mission. It ended with just one sentence. His identity remains unknown. The government has refused to comment. Kent leaned back, staring at the screen. Was this him? He pulled out the old photo Malcolm had left earlier, the boy under the rubble. The night was dark, but Officer Kent couldn't sleep. The room was silent, but his mind was full of noise. He sat at his small desk, staring at the screen. The metal chip Malcolm had given him was still plugged in. The files were still open. But nothing made sense. There were names, places, dates, and next to each name, a short description. Target, neutralized. Asset relocated. Incident covered. It read like a list of secrets. Secrets that were never supposed to be found. Kent whispered to himself, "What the hell is Project Echo?" He clicked deeper into the files. There were pictures now. Old ones. Some showed Malcolm in military gear standing beside people Kent didn't. Recognize. Others showed children, villages destroyed, buildings on fire. It was too much. He leaned back in his chair, rubbing his face. Then his phone rang. No number, just unknown caller. He hesitated, then picked up. A calm voice spoke. "Officer, Kent Thomas?" "Yes." The voice was slow, cold. "You have something that does not belong to you." Kent sat up straight. "Who is this?" The voice didn't answer. Instead, it said, "You don't understand what you've opened." "I want the truth," Kent replied. The voice laughed quietly. "There is no truth in secrets, only control." Then, the line went dead. Kent stared at his phone. Then the lights in his room flickered. He rushed to the window. A black car drove past slowly. No headlights. He grabbed the chip and closed the laptop. They were watching. Already. The next morning, Kent walked into the station. tired eyes, heavy steps. Inside, things were different. The crowd outside had grown larger. Some had camped there overnight. News vans were now lined up along the street. But inside the station, it was quiet, too quiet. Kent saw Dale sitting at his desk. He walked. Over. "Where's the chief?" Kent asked. Dale didn't answer right away. Finally, he said, "She's gone." "What do you mean, gone?" "She got a call around 3 a.m., left in a hurry. Didn't say where she was going. Just said, 'Don't trust anyone.'" Kent felt his stomach twist. They were getting closer. He walked back to his desk and opened the chip again. This time he searched for one name, Malcolm E. Rivers, and there it was, a video file, old grainy. He clicked play. The screen showed Malcolm, younger, maybe 10 years ago. He was in a dark room, being questioned by a group of men in suits. The video had no sound, but Malcolm's face told a story. He was angry. He was tired. And then suddenly he stood up, pulled off something from his chest, a badge, maybe, and slammed it on the table. Then the video ended. Under it, one word was written, "Traitor." Kent leaned forward. "No, that's not what I see," he whispered. "That's a man who walked away, because something was wrong." Suddenly his phone buzzed again, a message, no name, just a photo. It showed a child, alone, crying, standing near a broken house. The message read, "Do you know who this is?" Kent didn't reply. Another message followed. "He's the reason Malcolm came back." Kent called Dale into the room. "Look at this." Dale stared at the photo. "That's recent. I recognize the logo on the soldier's vest in the background. That's private security, not military." Kent nodded. "That's what I thought. Private missions, hidden hands, just like the ones Malcolm talked about." Kent clicked, through more files. Then something strange popped up. A document, half erased. But one sentence stood out. "Target, child survivor from Project Echo, resurfaced in Atlanta." Kent's eyes widened. He whispered, "It's happening again." Dale asked, "You think they're hunting the same child Malcolm saved years ago?" Kent didn't answer, because in his heart, he already knew the answer. Yes. And now that child was back, and in danger. Outside, the noise grew louder. Protesters, journalists, people chanting Malcolm's name. But inside the station, Kent made a decision. He packed the chip into a small drive, put it in his jacket pocket, and stood. Dale asked, "Where are you going?" Kent replied, "To find the kid." Dale stood too. "You can't go alone." Kent looked at him. "You still think Malcolm's just a lucky man with a loud story?" Dale sighed. "No, I think he's a warning." Then he picked up his keys. "Let's go." As they walked out the station, a man stepped from the shadows. Black coat, glasses, no badge. He smiled. "Going somewhere, gentlemen?" Kent didn't stop. "Walking," he said. "Move." The man stepped in front of them. "Last warning, hand over the chip." Dale pulled his jacket back, revealing his weapon. "I don't like threats." The man smiled again. "This isn't a threat." Then he turned and walked away. Kent and Dale got into the car. They drove into the city, watching every mirror, every corner. The chip was in Kent's pocket. The truth was heavy. But they weren't going to run. Not now. Not when a child's life, and Malcolm's story, and was still incomplete. In the distance, behind black glass windows, men in suits watched them on monitors. One said, "They're moving faster than we thought." Another replied, "Then we move faster too." The city lights flickered like nervous eyes. Kent drove slowly through the narrow streets of Atlanta. Next to him, Dale kept looking over his shoulder, watching for any black cars, hidden cameras, or men in dark suits. But it wasn't fear they felt now. It was purpose. They had a name. They had a face. And somewhere in this giant city, was a child in danger. The photo they'd received was still open on Kent's phone. A young black boy, no older than 10, standing beside a burned-down building. Dust covered his face. His eyes looked both scared and strong. Dale pointed at a small logo in the background, on a wall. That's a homeless shelter. East side of town. Kent nodded. Let's start there. They arrived just after sunset. The shelter looked worn but warm. A kind woman at the front desk greeted them. Her name was Miss Clara. She wore glasses and had the tired smile of someone who had seen too much, but still chose to help. Kent showed her the photo. She stared at it for a few seconds, then whispered, "That's Isaiah. Is he here?" Dale asked quickly. Clara hesitated. Was. What do you mean? She looked around nervously. He came here last week. Quiet boy, scared of loud sounds. Didn't speak much. But someone came asking for him 2 nights ago. Kent leaned in. Who? Men, in black coats. They didn't show ID, just asked questions, too many. Isaiah got scared and ran off before they could find him. Kent's voice tightened. Where would he go? Clara sighed. There's an old train yard. Abandoned. Kids go there sometimes when they don't feel safe. He might be hiding there. They drove fast. Night had taken over now, and every shadow felt like it was watching. The train yard was huge and silent. Rusty rails, broken train cars, graffiti-covered walls. It smelled like metal, dust, and fear. Kent turned off the car's headlights. We go on foot. They walked carefully, flashlights low. Then they heard something. A small sound. Breathing. Quick, shaky, close. They turned the light and saw him. Isaiah. Hiding under an old boxcar, eyes wide, hands holding a stuffed toy with one missing ear. Kent kneeled down slowly. It's okay. We're here to help. Isaiah didn't move, didn't speak. Dale whispered, He doesn't trust us. Kent nodded, then pulled out something from his jacket, the old photo, the one Malcolm had left, showing a man protecting a boy under rubble. He held it up to Isaiah. This man came back to protect you again. Isaiah's eyes filled with tears. He slowly crawled out. But before Kent could reach him, a gun clicked in the dark. Step away from the boy, a deep voice ordered. 2 men stepped from behind a train car. Black suits. No badges. Guns drawn. Dale raised his hands. We're police officers. No, you're not, one of them replied. Not anymore. Kent moved in front of Isaiah. You're not taking him. The taller man stepped closer. You don't understand. That boy isn't just a child. He's evidence, Kent shouted back. He's a human being. A third voice came from behind the agents. Strong! Calm! Step away from my son! Everyone froze. From the shadows! Malcolm Rivers stepped out. He was wearing a dark hoodie, eyes fierce but focused. The agents turned toward him. You're not supposed to be here. Malcolm smiled coldly. I was never supposed to survive either. In one swift motion, he disarmed the closest man and threw him to the ground. Chaos exploded. Dale grabbed Isaiah. Kent knocked down the second agent. Malcolm pulled the child close. I got you now, he whispered. They ran. Through the dark maze of old metal. Sirens started in the distance. Kent yelled, This way! They jumped a fence, into an alley, then into a stolen car Malcolm had hidden nearby. Tires screeched. They vanished into the night. Safe, for now. Isaiah sat between Kent and Malcolm, his hands still shaking. Malcolm turned to him. You remember me? Isaiah nodded slowly. You pulled me out of the fire. Malcolm's eyes softened. You were brave then. You're brave now. Kent drove in silence. Then asked, Why didn't you tell us he was your son? Malcolm answered, Because the truth is complicated. I didn't know at first. Years ago, I thought he died in the attack. Then I found his name, hidden in the echo files. I came back to finish what I started, Dale asked. What now? Malcolm looked at Isaiah. Now I protect him, with everything I have. They stopped at a safe house. A small cabin outside, the city, hidden in the woods. Malcolm had prepared it long ago. Inside there were supplies, a radio, weapons, food. Isaiah curled up on a couch and fell asleep, safe for the first time in years. Kent sat with Malcolm by the fire. You know, they won't stop coming, right? Malcolm nodded. I'm counting on it. He pulled out another chip. This one's louder. It doesn't just have files. It has names. Public names. People who sit on TV and lie every day. Kent's eyes widened. You plan to leak it? Malcolm smiled. I plan to wake the world. Outside in the woods, red dots blinked in the trees. They were being watched. Again. Back in the city, a man in a glass office picked up a phone. The fire crackled gently in the old cabin. Malcolm sat by the window, eyes sharp, body still. His hand stayed close to his side, near the gun on the table. Every sound outside made his muscles tighten. He wasn't just waiting, he was ready. Inside the cabin, Kent checked the locks again. Dale was on the radio, trying to reach someone they could trust. And little Isaiah? He was sleeping. For the first time in days, his breathing was soft. His tiny fingers still clutched his toy. But the silence wouldn't last. Far away, inside a cold government room, a man in a black suit slammed his hand on a table. They've had enough time. Another man nodded. Send the team. Burn everything. A group of soldiers loaded into trucks. Their orders were simple. No survivors. No trace. Back at the cabin, Dale's radio crackled. A voice broke through. They're coming. Kent grabbed his coat. How long? 10 minutes, maybe less. Malcolm stood. I'll slow them down. Kent blocked him. No, we stick together. Malcolm stared at him for a long second, then nodded. Isaiah woke up. He looked around, confused. He saw the guns, the tension, and he whispered, Is it happening again? Malcolm knelt beside him. Yes, but this time I'm here. Isaiah looked into his eyes. Promise? Malcolm placed a hand on the boy's heart. With everything I've got. They packed fast. Dale grabbed files. Kent hid the chip inside. A flashlight. Malcolm carried Isaiah in his arms. They moved to the back of the cabin, into the woods, into darkness. Then the fire started. A bright red light shot into the sky. The cabin exploded. Boom! The blast lit up the trees. Kent shielded Isaiah. Dale stumbled. Malcolm turned back, just for a second, and in that second he saw them. The black team. 6 men in armor moving like shadows. Guns. Lasers. Trained killers. They ran. Through trees. Over. Rocks. Bullets cracked behind them. Kent shouted, Keep moving! Malcolm handed Isaiah to Dale. Get him to the old rail tunnel. I'll draw them, Dale protested. No, you'll get killed. But Malcolm was already gone. He ran toward the noise, toward the fire. And as the trees burned behind him, he began to remember, years ago. He had run like this before, carrying a child, saving a life. While people in suits made money off blood, he had been a soldier once, then a ghost. Now, he was a father. In the woods, he jumped out behind a tree and opened fire. 2 agents dropped. 3 more came through the smoke. Malcolm ducked, rolled, fired again. Dale, Kent, and Isaiah reached the tunnel entrance. It was small, old, hidden behind vines. They crawled in just before another explosion shook the ground. Inside, it was dark and damp. Isaiah clung to Dale's arm. Kent breathed hard. We have to go back for him. Dale stopped him. If we go back, we all die. But, just then, footsteps echoed. Kent raised his gun. But it wasn't Malcolm. It was a young woman, sweaty, bloody, carrying a bag of hard drives. I'm Kayla, she said. Malcolm sent me. Kent lowered his gun. Where is he? Buying us time. She handed Kent the bag. This has everything. Names, places, records. If we get this to the press, they can't hide anymore. Kent took it, but his hands were shaking. He's going to die out there. Outside, Malcolm was still fighting, wounded now, bleeding from the side, but alive, always moving. He led the last two agents away from the tunnel. He took them down, one at a time, with quiet, brutal precision. Then he leaned against a tree, breathing hard. Smoke filled the sky. He smiled weakly. That's enough. Then he pressed a button on his belt, a signal. Back in the tunnel, Kayla's phone buzzed. She looked at the screen. He did it, Dale asked. What? The upload. It's live. Kent's eyes widened. You mean? Yes. Every file, every video, every voice recording, gone public, right now. At that moment, across the country, news anchors' faces froze in shock. TV screens changed. Emails flooded inboxes. Whispers turned into screams. The truth was finally out. And the black team? They went silent. Orders stopped. The operation was exposed. They were ghosts again. No one would claim them now. Hours later, Kent, Dale, Isaiah, and Kayla reached a safe house in another state. Isaiah sat on a couch, watching cartoons, but his face was still sad. He looked up. Where's my dad? Kent didn't know what to say. Then the door opened, and Malcolm walked in, wounded, bruised, alive. Isaiah ran into his arms. Malcolm held him tightly. I told you, he whispered. I promised. The next day, newspapers used one word on the front page. Betrayal. And underneath it, a picture of Malcolm Rivers, not in handcuffs, not behind bars, but holding his son. He wasn't just a black man who got lucky. He wasn't just another suspect. He was a hero, a father, a warrior. And now, the world knew it too. Morning. Light spilled through the windows of the safe house. Isaiah was asleep on a couch, holding his father's jacket like a blanket. His chest rose and fell slowly. Peaceful. Finally. Malcolm sat nearby, quietly watching him. Kent stood by the window, looking at the world outside, a world that had changed overnight. The files Malcolm leaked had exploded across the internet. Headlines screamed words like corruption, secret program, and children used as test subjects. The world was no longer silent, but danger still lived in the shadows. Inside a government building, panic was growing. A senior official barked into a phone. Shut it down, all of it. Another whispered, what about Rivers? The man snapped. He's alive, that's the problem. We can't let him speak publicly. Then make sure he doesn't. Back at the safe house, Malcolm opened a small black box. Inside it were three things: a memory chip, a faded photo of Isaiah's mother, and a ring Kent watched him silently. What is that? Malcolm held up the chip. This one was never meant to go public. What's on it? He looked up, serious. Me. They sat at the kitchen table while Dale and Kayla packed their gear. Malcolm slid the chip toward Kent. It's my confession. Everything I've done, every mission, every secret. Kent blinked. Why give it to me? Because the world only believes heroes when someone else tells their story. Kent stared at the chip, then nodded. I'll tell it right. Outside, tires crunched gravel. Everyone went still. A car pulled up. It wasn't a government SUV. It was an old station wagon. A woman stepped out. Gray hair, tired eyes, but a spark of hope in her face. Isaiah saw her through the window and shouted, Grandma! He ran outside and jumped into her arms. She cried and held him tightly. I thought I lost you forever. Malcolm watched from the door, eyes full. I found him, just like I promised her. Kent whispered. Her? Malcolm nodded. Isaiah's mother. She died thinking our son was gone. I had to make it right. Isaiah's grandma would now take him far away, to a quiet town with trees and schools and no fire. Before she left, Malcolm knelt beside Isaiah. "Are you scared?" Isaiah looked up. "A little." "That's okay. You're brave." "That doesn't mean no fear. It means you move, even when you're scared." Isaiah hugged him tight. "Will I see you again?" Malcolm smiled. "Yes, but until then, I'll be watching. I'll be fighting. For you." Then he stood, watched the car drive away, and cried, silently. Later that night, Malcolm, Kent, Dale, and Kayla sat in a cheap motel room under fake names. The news was still playing. More officials were resigning. More people were being arrested. But the real leader, the one who started it all, he was still out there. A video played on the screen, an old clip of Malcolm from years ago. The media was already rewriting his story. They called him the survivor, the whistleblower, the man who fought the system. Malcolm shook his head. They love heroes, but they still hate the truth. Kent leaned forward. Then, "Tell them, in your voice, on camera, not as a file, as a father." Malcolm hesitated. "What if they twist it?" Kayla said softly. "Or what if they listen?" The next day, they did it. Inside a small room with one camera, Malcolm sat down. The lights were low, his voice steady. "My name is Malcolm Rivers. For years, I worked in the shadows. I saw what they did to people who looked like me. I watched them destroy families, use children, lie to the world." He paused. "They told me I was dangerous, that I was unstable. But I was just a man who knew the truth. And the truth scared them." The video went viral in hours. Millions watched. Some cried. Some got angry. Some were finally awake. Days later, Malcolm walked alone into a courthouse. Reporters screamed his name. Cameras flashed. He didn't hide. He walked in like a warrior. Not to surrender, but to stand. In front of a judge, he spoke. "I'm not asking for freedom. I'm asking for justice. Not just for me, but for every child they locked in a cage, every parent they silenced, every officer they used." The courtroom was silent. The judge nodded. "We will open a full investigation." Malcolm had done it. He didn't run. He faced the fire and became something more than a fighter. He became the voice of the voiceless. Weeks later, Kent walked through a schoolyard in another state. He saw Isaiah, running, laughing, playing. He had friends now, a backpack, a bike, a life. Isaiah ran up and smiled. "Uncle Kent!" Kent hugged him. "You okay, champ?" Isaiah grinned. "Dad wrote me a letter." He pulled it from his bag and read, "Dear Isaiah, you are the strongest boy I know. I see you every day in my heart. One day, the world will be safe enough for me to stand beside you in the sun. Until then, never stop believing in the truth. I love you." Isaiah looked up. He kept his promise. Kent smiled. "He always will." That night, Isaiah looked up at the stars. He whispered, "Good night, Dad." Somewhere far away in a quiet prison cell, Malcolm Rivers closed his eyes. He heard his son's voice, felt peace in his chest, and smiled. Because for the first time, in years, he wasn't just surviving, he had won. 6 months had passed. The world had moved on. News stations stopped talking about the files. New headlines took over. New scandals.